mighty listeners. Welcome to 2P's still in a Dreadclaw. Vigilus has fallen. Imperium Nihilus is cut off. The Nachman Gauntlet has collapsed. And, it's all gone wrong. I'm chuffed. And actually, I've made up a lot of that as well.
I was going to say, I don't remember reading any of that.
It is, it's in the bit that I added on the end in Biro. Guys, it's lovely to be back. We're sorry we've had a bit of a break. Ben was doing his hair, and that's taken a little while to do. So today, Ben, how are you? Anyway, it's been a month.
It has been a month.
Ben,
yeah,
how are you?
I'm pretty ropey today. I've had a hell of a migraine, but we're all right.
Wow, I think that is the weight of the failure of the loyalists bearing down on your mind.
Probably is.
Yeah, I think so. So, we shall do on the hobby desk, as we always do. We've got some bits to talk about, mostly chaos in my mind, and chaos of a different form that's bouncy and colourful in Ben's. Then we'll go into the Galaxy of War. Probably more chaos to discuss there, unsurprisingly. Moving into the Mortal Realms, you probably know already, so there's no point even saying it. Well, we'll be talking about there. And then Hail to the Community. So we're going to do something a little bit different this time. We're going to talk through the community survey that Games Workshop has just put up, and what we feel, what sort of answers we would make to the three areas that they've asked people to comment on. And then lastly, we're going to go wild. That's not the kind of wild that anyone wants. That's not a night out kind of wild.
Not really, mate.
That's the type of wild though. When you get to 32, cup of tea, sat down in front of the telly watching a film.
Wild is choosing Netflix over Friends.
That's wild. And if I stay up past like 10:30, that's wild now.
Yeah.
So that's why I refer to these as us having a wild night. Anyway, that's enough rabbiting on. Let's get into talking about some hobby. Guys, you know what to do. Grab some refreshments. We'll see you on the hobby desk.
Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 42's Hobby Desk. It's been a while, so we're probably going to forget at least half of what we've painted over the last 4 weeks.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I've painted things red with gold and snow bases.
Yeah, but new red, new gold. Same old snow bases.
Listen, there's nothing same old about my snow bases, okay? Those bases are birthing an entire realm.
Yeah.
That snow is a immaculate... Mary Berry would want that recipe.
She probably would. It's like frosting on a coconut cake.
Yeah, I reckon. Hang on. Now we're talking about Mary Berry.
And food.
And food, and I've mentioned cups of tea. Oh my
We're already
goodness.
well off topic.
What are we doing? So, let's start with you then, because you've done some bouncy stuff. Just moving around on the chair, sorry. Right.
Well, I've just had a look through Instagram to try and work out what I have painted since the last episode. And I think I finished my Iron Snake as well.
Yes.
Which I was really...
I think you did... That grey is fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
I'm sorry. He looks wonderful. I couldn't resist.
No, well, it's always the worry, isn't it, when you're painting like non-metallic metals, that people will just think it looks like a cut. Do you remember when, was it Rackham and Confrontation? Over the first time I saw non-metallic metals being used on like a large scale, and I didn't really get what they were doing, because they didn't look to me, in the pictures at least, very much like metal. They looked a little bit like just like a colour.
Mm.
So when they were doing the gold, it looked like bone to me, yellowy bone. As time went on, they got a lot better, and I started to get what they were doing. And I guess that that company in particular, I think it did quite a lot to push non-metallic metal in the painting scene. But Yeah, it was really tough, actually, for the first time, but it was really good fun. Took me a hell of a time to paint, though. Won't be doing that very often.
He looked really... It was weird, though, because, like, you normally are, like, churning stuff out.
Yeah.
But, he looked fantastic. And I think it was lovely that you chose to do an Iron Snake as well.
It was probably the wrong colour to have chosen to do a shiny reflective surface. Because it was a darker grey. Like a dark bolt gunmetal grey. And then I had the gunmetal on the gun. Really, really enjoyed painting the gold on it. I mean, that for me was my favourite bit because it was in little small areas and I could think about it. And I used Darren Latham's guide from his blog, and also, and there's a reason I hesitated because I had this number in my head, but it's in the White Dwarf with the Blood Angels on the front. He did a fantastic guide on how to paint the Sanguinor. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I used that. Yeah. I had that open next to me, and now I want to paint the Sanguinor because like to do it across the whole model, but it was a bit of a revelation. I felt like really for the first time I'd opened that door, and just really enjoyed it. It took me like a whole painting night to paint a leg, though, dude. And that's the sort of pace I was going. So that's like 5 hours to paint a leg, because I would agonize over every transition that wasn't right, every blend that wasn't right, and go back and redo it and until it was perfect. Whereas normally, if I painted like one of the squigs and one of the blends or one of the transitions wasn't great, I'd be like, no one's going to sit and scrutinize it for hours. I was really chuffed that I chose the Iron Snake, actually, retrospectively. I don't know why I chose to do the Iron Snake. I think it's because when we were talking about painting that model, the Iron Snake was the one that we thought would be best suited for it. It would mean the most. It has meant that now I'm looking at them and I've been searching hashtag Iron Snakes and having a really good old think about whether I want to do Iron Snake Primaris Army, like as little, add units to my company. Because the fourth company of Iron Snakes died in Acadia to a man. So the company that I have is the fourth company, and they're all gone kaput. So they would be theoretically replaced by a Primaris company, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So
I like, Acadia was a little bit earlier on, wasn't it? It would have been cool if you could have just said that like one of them
survived.
Pryad had survived, but like on the brink of death, so they put him in stasis, and then after Marnius Calgar proved that you could be made into a Primaris, they used that process to turn him into a Primaris and save him.
Yeah. And
then he becomes your new...
It would be cool, wouldn't it? I mean, it'd be... No one's ever going to write that background, and I don't... Well, Dan Abnett might do Brothers of the Snake too. I'd be interested to see what his thoughts on what would have happened to Pryad would be, but he's definitely... The fourth company is definitely on the list. Mind you, having said that, in the book, there are no companies, I don't think. They don't talk about companies. They cast their tokens as a squad whenever an operation is listed, and then the tokens get chosen from the whatever it is, urn, vase, cauldron of steel, I don't remember, and the captains select their squads and go off. So they don't work as in the book. They don't work as a traditionally kind of fully codex chapter. Unless, of course, they're casting our tokens as squads within the company, to do it. But they never mentioned that it was the fourth company. I kind of chose that and put Pryad in it because it had never been mentioned. So Pryad could be in another company and I could just start a whole new one.
Yeah.
But there we go. I really enjoyed him. I might enter him into Golden Demon, actually, Dan. I said I was going to do it at some point. I've got no illusion that it's going to do very well, because it's going to be in 40k single miniature, and the quality of models in that is far, far ahead of what I'm doing. I literally bounced around like a squig with happiness if it got a finalist pin, but we'll see. So Squig Hoppers were next. Do you know, it took me a little while, maybe a week, to sort of pluck up the energy to do them. Because they're really quite intimidating models.
Yes.
There's a lot going on, and I made it hard for myself because I wanted them all to be different colours to match the first squad of Squig Hoppers I did, like the test squad. But then there isn't enough, there's not much green skin on them, so it was difficult to tie them all together. So, it's a good job the armour was there in some ways to tie them together, and also I made sure the lances were all the same colours as well to tie them together. But you've got loads of little things going on, like the mushrooms and the different colour cloaks, if you will, that I've done, and the stuff that's going on the bases, the smoke coming out like the puffer mushrooms. There's so many colours in there that I was trying to tie together and keep with the army. I found it took me a week of just sat. Do you go through like that process where you're looking at a model and thinking, oh, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to do it? What colour am I going to... I suppose not. You just paint them all red and gold. But
yeah, mostly.
It took me a while of thinking, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. They were a big effort though. It took 3 weeks to paint. Won't be adding a squad of them, another unit of them quickly, I can tell you.
They look incredible though. The bases, again, are just outstanding.
Thanks, dude. I'm really happy with that basing scheme. It doesn't take me that long now either. Now I've got the habit of it. I was worried I'd forgotten how to do it because I hadn't written down how I did it for my iron jaws anywhere. It's like, oh. But it ended up all right. I was quite happy with how the armour turned out because it's a lot smaller, and all the other armour I've done on my iron jaws has been done using an airbrush. And I think I did Steel Legion Drab, and then I think it's Khemri. I can't quite remember, but like a mid-colour. Is that it there? Khemri or Talon, I think. And then Pallid Witch Flesh. And then Fine Edge highlighted with Pallid Witch Flesh. Well, I couldn't do those colours on the model, so I ended up going with Rakarth Flesh, washed back with Agrax Earthshade, and then re-highlighted because the armour was a much smaller part of what I was painting. Mm-hmm. And it's tied it in okay, so I was quite happy with that. It doesn't look as nice as the Iron Jaw stuff in a lot of ways because the airbrush just gets that lovely transition you can't really do quickly with a brush for a squad. So yeah, I'm really happy with those. And then this week I started the Mangler Squig and the Loom Boss on a Squig. The Mangler Squig is just an absolutely phenomenal model. Absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, it really is. It really, really is, isn't it? It's so dynamic.
I think next time I'd be very tempted to do it in sub-assemblies because as much as it's like, I thought I'd be able to get to a lot of it and put it together. I didn't mention this when I was talking about the Squig Hoppers, but with all of them, painting the inside of the mouths was an absolute nightmare. So I will probably, next time I do a unit of them, do the mouths on the sprue before I put them at the back of the mouths, before I put them together, because you just getting a brush in there is a nightmare. And I can see the grey plastic in there, especially the more darker you make the model, the more obvious it becomes. The Mangler Squig again, like I said just before we went on air, that I ended up having to shove the airbrush right up against a crack and just sort of angling it in and all around, trying to cover everything with something to try and get it to look dark. Much swearing was involved, but it's all right now. But it was a real pain, and I think next time I will do the mouth separately because I've done the Mangler Squig with the Loom Boss on top because I wanted to have an armoured one. And I was always
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say it was always my intention to have one of each, so I started with the armoured one. What
I find really hard about sub-assemblies, especially with new models, not new, as in they've just been released, is you want to see them built.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I could just stick that last bit on. I could just stick that on. Yeah, I could stick that on. It's like, you can't help yourself. I found Adeptus Titanicus is really tough for that.
Yeah, because you really, it's so much easier to paint with the armor plates off. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The bits where you have to put them on to actually build the structure, they just become a pain in the butt. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And it feels like such a drag, that project, because you're painting it all separately and you're like, oh god. And then you, like, almost 2/3 of the way through, you put it together and you're like, oh yes, it looks so awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely.
what was I going to say? Sub-assemblies, the bit that I don't get, and it's, the models are never perfect, and you're always going to get gaps where you put two pieces together that aren't necessarily perfect. I cannot, with a lot of things, it's obvious, you know, how you're going to hide them, or you can choose a sub-assembly where it's not going to show that much, but I cannot really work out how some of like these top end painters, and you see them painting things in bits, when they put it together, firstly, how they don't have any gaps that are that obvious, and secondly, how they don't smear their glue or get a massive glue catastrophe, because even putting together my Space Marine, his bolt gun slid off a little bit and dragged his plasticky glued arm all the way across the back of the bolt gun and just took off all the paint. I was like, I hate you. Like, I actually hate you.
Yeah.
And I had to go back and redo it all again. And I could see me doing that with a big model and just wanting to cry. So that's the bit I don't get about it. How, when you've done it in the sub-assemblies that you would have to do to get inside the mouth and under the squig, you've got to put it together at some point. And how do you do that without having a complete gluey mess? Because plastic glue will strip the paint off, and super glue leaves that white kind of smoke across surfaces, I find. If you get some, I don't know. That's one for me to work out in the future, I think. But yeah, so they're nicely on their way, those two. I've done the squig boss on a white squig just to make him stand out.
Oh.
And I'm going to sort of have it in the back. I've had it in the back of my head that white squigs are a bit like, you know, yellow dragons.
He's essentially the orc version of Shadowfax.
Yeah. Well, I kind of thought that, you know, maybe like the white squig would be like a really popular kind of mount, but very rare, because perhaps that they were slightly more intelligent and were quite happy being ridden into battle because they quite enjoyed it. So they were more controllable. So, you know, the rider could, because the loon boss it's just a fantastic model. It's a classic old model, that one, with a spear. He looks properly, he's got a dwarven helmet. I didn't realise that until I started painting him. He's nicked a dwarven helmet. So, yeah. So I'm well into those. Right, I've rambled on for hours, dude. I want to hear what you've been up to.
So I had the absolute joy to get a new battle tome, in the form of the new Blades of Khorne book. And that came along with a skull shrine, or altar of skulls, or something like that it's called.
Wizard's Tower.
Yeah, Wizard's Tower, and Endless Spells.
Yep.
So
glad we're on the same page now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the Judgments and the Altar of Skulls, and yeah, so I must say, mate, that Altar of Skulls went together so well.
It's gorgeous.
So both that and the Judgments are the ones where they're designed in Nottingham, but they're produced in China.
Yeah.
And they're made out of, the plastic has a more, almost a denser feel to it.
It's a bit resiny, isn't it?
Yeah. And previously, certainly I remember Storm of Magic and the terrain that came out with that. And a few other pieces have not gone together as well as, other things.
Yeah.
They've been a lot more challenging. These, absolutely incredible, mate. I think I said to you, certainly said to someone, I reckon if I'd left them on my desk next to each other, they'd have just put themselves together overnight.
Yeah.
It was just so enjoyable, because of that. So, and the mould lines as well, really, really like maximised having them on like corners and stuff.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really see them. So really impressed by those kits. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I painted them, really, really quite quickly, actually. I was really pleased, by how quickly they came out. And mostly that was driven by a desire on my part to simplify the painting process for my Khorne.
Yeah. Yeah, we spent a long time talking about it, didn't we?
Yeah, and I just want, I just would like, I think over the next few months, couple of years, I'm going to have less time. So I'd like to be able to get a bit more done in the time I have. That's certainly one motivation. But also, I am a collector and I like to have collections, big collections. I like to have the range of units. But I'm also not the most patient of people. So I kind of felt like I had to make a choice, to make a change, if I was going to be able to sort of get the buzz that I was looking for. So in that sort of quest, the sort of key area for me, the biggest one was the brass.
Yeah.
So previously, brass for me was a layer of Balthazar gold, then Agrax, and then at least one, if not two coats of Sycorax bronze, and then an edge highlight of Vallejo silver.
Yeah. And
I was really happy with that, but it takes a long time, particularly building back over the Balthazar gold.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the skulls and the bone. So again, typically the same sort of process. So Xandri dust, Agrax, 2 or 3 coats of Ishabti bone, Screaming Skull, and then maybe a spot of white.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the red was always Khorne red, Agrax, and then Khorne red painted on again, and then an edge of Evil Sun Scarlet. So very much Citadel kind of system. Looks nice. I'm happy. It does look good, but just takes that bit of time. So the main principle I've gone with is trying to start with a lighter colour and use a more diluted wash.
Yeah.
So all of the bone now, I'm starting with Screaming Skull. And I'm also using my airbrush more. So I've been using the airbrush on some infantry size miniatures to try and get that bone colour down. Yeah. Because I can do it much faster with less coats.
Yeah.
And with the red, it's Khorne red and then zenithed or spotted in certain areas with Evil Suns, but both through the airbrush.
Yeah.
And having that lighter colour means that then when I go in with a 50-50 Agrax and an airbrush medium that I've got, it doesn't obliterate it so much that I then have to spend ages building back up through.
Yeah.
So that made a big difference. And then finally, and this is quite ironic actually, because we were talking about non-metallic metals.
You've gone for the most metallic metal there is.
Yeah, I've gone the other way and bought into the Vallejo liquid gold.
Yeah.
Range. Now, it should be said that I got a little bit carried away. I went into big and I was like, right, I need a replacement for Sycorax bronze that works quicker. And so I bought a number of paints, £33 worth of gold, bronzy shades later. I returned to my cave and began to experiment. And I actually found that Vallejo liquid gold, red gold is almost identical. And oh my goodness, is it a nice colour, mate?
Yeah.
It's a little bit more difficult to work with because it is alcohol based. So I even, when I was working on the terrain piece, ended up wearing my mask because it was quite pungent.
Well, what are you using as your medium? Isopropyl.
Isopropyl.
Yeah. You might be better off. It might be worth looking for others because isopropyl is really, it aerosolizes quite easily. So just having it in your presence, you're breathing it in, and it's not great.
No.
So you're probably going to be well suited to wear your mask anyway, to be honest, mate.
Yeah.
Otherwise we'll find a Dan-shaped puddle on the floor in your hobby room one day.
Yeah.
Gibbering on the floor like a chaos spawn.
Yeah. But the colour is wonderful. It goes on in one coat.
It looks
really
amazing with one coat. Like when you showed me the picture of it in one coat, you could almost leave it like that and sort of line in with agrax around the rivets or something and just have done with it.
Yeah, well, what I found is by using this more watered down version of agrax, it does a lot of that really nicely.
Does it flow? I should imagine the wash flows over the surface quite well.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I would have thought it would, yeah.
Yeah, it flows over it quite well.
Do you need to have it at, like, leave it to dry at the right angle? Because if you, I suppose let's turn the question around. If you, say, put your shrine on and you washed it, would all of the wash, like, accumulate at the bottom, or would still some be retained around the top?
It some did stay around the top, but it did sort of, I had to sort of manage it a little bit. I couldn't just wash it and wander off. I did have to manage it a bit. But that was okay. I didn't mind that. Used the airbrush loads. Like, I airbrushed the skulls.
Yeah.
And I also airbrushed all the blood coming out of them. And really tried to improve my control to allow me to airbrush more. So that was good. And I have started the Venom Crawler and the Exalted Possessed. And with the red, I'm going up to Evil Sons so that, again, when I wash it, because I've started lighter, it knocks it back to look about the same as Corn Red washed and then painted Corn Red.
Remind me again what your edge highlight was for...
It's Evil Sons Scarlet.
But on your previous ones?
Yeah. But I haven't got an edge highlight at the moment on my new ones. I haven't done it at all on the shrine.
No, I don't think you might not need to.
No.
I mean, it's a different style of painting because you're going for a more natural highlight rather than the, round the edges. Because with all that edging on the panels, you could end up doing all those lines around the edges rather than in the middle, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
The heavy metal way of doing it, as it were.
And with the metal, with the brass, I did the sort of edges and stuff on the big one and on the symbol and stuff with I dry brushed it. Yeah. Because I know, like, I've been saying to you for ages that dry brushing's good and you should use it.
I know. It's not like,
and in no way is that actually completely the reverse of what I just said. But
how did you get on with that?
Yeah, it was fine. It worked quite well.
It certainly doesn't look dry brushed, dude.
It's a funny old technique, dry brushing, because it promises speed, but it's not. You've got to less haste, more speed, I suppose. You have got to think about what you're doing and give it. You can't just go mental.
No,
not if you want something that doesn't look not very good.
It's a technique like any other, and as much as everyone says, oh, it's a fast way of doing it, or some people, I find it's not really fair to say it's the beginner's way of doing it. Well, maybe it is, but you could also say that washing isn't a beginner's way of doing stuff. That's kind of like, that was for a period of time, the new way of beginners doing stuff. But actually with everything, including dry brushing, it is a technique, and you can be bad at that technique, and you can be so good at that technique that it looks like you've airbrushed something. So I think when it's used properly, it's a really good way of doing things. And I'm by no means an expert at it. I mean, I've seen some things that people have dry brushed that I would not genuinely have never said in a month of Sundays they'd been dry brushed. But they have. I think it's a technique like any other, and the more practice you get at it, the more you slow down and think about what it is you're actually doing and how to use it to achieve different things. You can end up doing anything from really nice looking object source lighting to like panels with really smooth gradients on. That's my 2p worth, but
yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. I was just thinking about what you were saying. Yeah, so the other thing I was thinking as well with my corn is that so much on the table, so much of them is about the base anyway.
Yeah. Bases and faces.
Bases and faces. So
first thing I was taught when I worked for Games Workshop. Bases and faces, Ben.
It's also given me a little bit of confidence that I might actually be able to tackle the corn scenery.
Oh, yeah.
Because a bit of me has been absolutely dreading doing it because it's a pain. It looks like a pain, but I think what I'll do now is I'll spray it because that liquid gold, if you think it looks good using a brush, mate, when you spray it, it's like heaven coming out of an airbrush. I sprayed the symbol.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. So that's my hobby. I've started the Venom Crawler. I've started the Exalted Dudes. I built another guy, a Master of Possession.
And you bought all the chaos.
I bought a lot of chaos, dude. I got totally carried away. I bought Vigilus Ablaze because you know, why would I not? New Chaos Codex, new cards, Abaddon, a couple of boxes of Chaos Space Marines. No, one box of Chaos Space Marines plus Shadow Spear. So yeah,
that's the problem. When you get a release that's your release, you tell yourself that you're not going to go all in, but really you have to because it'd be rude not to.
Yeah, and I just need to decide now what I'm going to do with, because part of me wants to do Khorne, just all Khorne, and part of me wants to do some Black Legion, and I just don't know. Especially because I've seen some wonderful conversions using the Forge World set.
Yeah.
And the new Chaos Space Marines. And it's made me think that actually, that it would allow you to make Khorne Berserkers that tie in more with the other elements of the range.
Yeah.
Such as the Raptors, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I'll leave you to ponder that predicament.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're probably not going to know until you know.
No, and to be honest, dude, I'm definitely in a place, again, at the moment, where I need to knock out a couple of the units that I have already. And give myself that feeling of moving forward, before I start painting Fire Slayers, which I want to do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Should we head ourselves over to the Galaxy of War?
Yes, absolutely, dude.
We'll see you on the other side.
Oh, the other side of the Cicatrix Maledictum! I claimed this planet the moment I set eyes upon it. Vigilus is doomed, and the fools who toil in its defence are dead men. Never have truer words been spoken.
How did he just ran off to protect his pimp wagon? So
no.
That's exactly what happened. Somebody came and went, "Oh, Abaddon, someone's keyed your car," and he flew off into orbit to sort it out.
No, absolutely not. He just felt that it was important to allow other elements of his forces the opportunity to do a bit more.
Uh-huh. And you've got nothing else.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Well, what it was is he'd heard that somebody who drives an Audi had got on his ship and was trying to, move it around.
That's just pretty much what happened, actually.
Yeah. I know, it's quite funny, isn't it? I was reading the background and I was like, oh my goodness. I don't quite understand. Calgar gets, it even says that Drakion cleaves through his arts.
Yeah.
And yet, one of them's, totally cleaved through and one's slightly damaged by a demon sword that sucks the life out of people. And he still survived. I think maybe they should have gone with, a building fell on him.
He's just so mighty that the demon sword was nah, I can't touch this.
He is mighty.
It was a bit of a, we're getting quite ahead of us. We're talking about Vigilus Ablaze now, guys. Without any interest.
Yeah, we've just launched into it, haven't we?
Yeah. It was a bit of I loved that battle. It was written very much in the Tolkien style, so it was less of when they did the Fall of Cadia and the Gathering Storm stuff, they did those key scenes with like fiction writing. They had like little pages where it was done like a story. I did expect them to do that with Vigilus Ablaze, but they didn't. So it was done in a kind of, like I say, the Tolkien way of doing things, which is to describe what happened, or from someone else's perspective, or not necessarily fleshing out on all of the details so much. And I did, when I read that, think about how they basically built up Calgar, and then now they've, as far as we're concerned, at the end of Vigilus, he's like just sat behind their lines, directing the battle, because he's got nothing left. It's basically just spent. Abaddon has ruined him. Yeah. I did feel a bit sorry for him. I hope he sort of gathers himself together again.
The bit that I was a bit surprised at, I suppose. I do understand what they were getting at, but it's described at one point. It says that anybody looking on from the Imperial side could tell that the chapter master was holding back.
He was, yeah.
And he's holding back to sort of draw Abaddon on, so, to give time for the attack on the Vengeful Spirit. But I don't really like the thought. And I know he's Marnius Calgar, and he's amazing. But I don't like the thought that he could even survive if he held back.
Well, there's holding back off the attack, and there's giving everything in defence. So,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, if you're constantly defending, you're on the back foot essentially, and that's why he lost, because as he was stepping back, didn't he? The concrete gave way, and that all Abaddon needed was that split second, and that was the end of it. He was playing a huge risk, frankly, and it's not like Abaddon turned up and went hell for leather at him either. The problem is with Abaddon is he's an arrogant so-and-so. He automatically assumed he was just going to ruin Calgar in 5 seconds flat. And he's probably gone in there with that attitude, and in a way is holding back himself, if you know what I mean. If Calgar had keyed his vengeful spirit, he'd have gone in there and splattered him in a heartbeat. Because clearly that's the only thing that he cares about. That's my dad's car! It was quite cool reading about the vengeful spirit and how they practically pulled every available resource from the whole sector, practically the whole quadrant of the galaxy, to attack the vengeful spirit, and they just weren't even getting close. That's one powerful ship, isn't it, really? I mean,
it is very, yeah. Interestingly, just because you mentioned Taurus and it reminded me of something, I read today that Sanguinius, the model, is twice as popular on release as any of the other Primarchs have been.
Wow. That's cool.
So
all those memes, the money talks at the end of the day.
Yeah. Vigilus, really good. I've enjoyed both the Vigilus books. I think they've got an excellent mix of background and moving the story along, and then campaign rules, for sort of narrative, and then, new units or new additions for match play.
I love them. I absolutely love them. There's so much time dedicated to fleshing out Vigilus, what it is, what's going on, what it's like, the maps in there, the little bits of background. I love it. It feels like a real setting.
Yes.
Vigilus is now Armageddon.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison.
It's on the same kind of level. Armageddon's got like a history. It's got like a, you can almost picture it when you close your mind if you're a 40k fan. it's the same for me now with Vigilus. They've done such a good job over 2 books of making that place come alive. And now we know it's a strategic, like, bastion in the Imperial, you know, in the whole war effort. So it's going to be there forever. I think they're fantastic. I really hope there's a third one just to sort of polish it off, but you don't think there will be?
Well, I was convinced I'd read somewhere that there was only going to be 2, but then I have since seen things that have suggested that's not correct. So we'll have to see. Yeah,
the only reason I really want to see a third is that so I can find out that poor old Calgar isn't just. It's not going to be like Christopher Pike. That's a Star Trek reference, but yeah, that's why I want a third one. Do you know what excites me the most is that when the last time I remember something like this happening with a planet was the Medusa campaign. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I didn't think that was very good. I didn't think it was very good because it followed in the footsteps of Storm of Chaos. And it didn't feel like it had the same importance. You know, with Storm of Chaos, there was a genuine feeling that you were deciding the fate of the old world in a way. But with the fall of Medusa, it was... A lot of people probably don't even know the name Medusa, which kind of says it all. But Vigilus is just so rounded and so good and can be so many things to so many different people, however you want to play it. And has a kind of importance in the 40k background now. I cannot wait for the next one because they're only going to get better. The practice that they've got from this one and the feedback that people must have been giving them, and it's only going to get better. And the model releases that have gone along to support it. I mean, we had Abaddon for this one. It's going to be amazing. I'm really genuinely so excited for the future of these kind of books. Yeah, I think
what's really exciting as well is it's genuine. Stuff is genuinely happening and changing and writing with history. Which I suppose was always a little bit more possible in 40k because it's so broad. But certainly and we'll probably talk about it more when we get to the Mortal Realms, but it's wonderful to see both game systems moving on.
In that position now. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it inspires you with your own thoughts on background and wanting to do your own bits on Vigilus or round Vigilus or, even if it's not Vigilus at all, but it's got some cool concepts in there about the Gene Stealer cults, and you really feel like you can take an area. There's a whole half of the Imperium which is cut off, isn't there? And you can go and explore. Yeah. So yeah, it's great. Really love it. Really love it.
So since we've last spoken, and after our raging endorsement of the Vigilus campaign.
Yes.
You have had a real bucket load of Chaos models, dude, and I don't think we've covered all of them. It's difficult to remember which ones we did and didn't last time, but the new squad we'd only just seen, hadn't we? We'd only just seen a lot of them on the day we recorded.
Yeah, so Shadowspear came out on the day we were up there, didn't it?
Yeah, it was released, and then they showed us photographs of the Chaos Space Marine squad.
Yeah. That's right.
Have they shown us the Terminators?
No.
Yeah. So we do the Terminators first. I like them up until the point where I looked at the alignment of their shoulders with their heads. And then that slightly ruined them for me. But the more I look at them, the more that aesthetic is settling down on me. You could just put helmet on to sort most of those things out. But, they're a really nice reimagining of that Chaos kit, that Chaos Terminator kit that I didn't think needed redoing.
Oh, it did. It did.
Well, I didn't think it did, and now I know it did.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's almost like the thing you didn't know needed changing gets changed, and you're like, oh, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I think they're lovely, mate. One thing that is slightly odd is I was looking at the sprues, and so it says in the, well, I'm pretty sure I'm right, that Terminators come with a chain axe, like in the squad.
As their basic
armament. Yeah. But there's only one on the sprue, which is odd. But, they
for a Khorne player, that must be devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. What's more devastating is that I really want to give them all lightning claws. But
I love the lightning claw one they showed.
Know.
With him marching forward, he looks savage.
Yeah, he's lovely, yeah. I do want to get some because I've got my Chaos Lord is in Terminator armor.
Yeah.
And he never does anything. He just rocks up and gets shot because he's on his own. Whereas...
Well, that's not what happened in our game. He held off...
Well, yeah, apart from in our game, that was amazing. But I'd love him to...
I should have attacked first with the Thunderbolts and just splattered him.
But you didn't. So... No, but you did win, so it's okay. I'd love him to have 8 Terminator bodyguard. Just come down.
He needs one, really.
Well, and also they can have an icon of we're really angry, and so they get a re-roll to their charge, which is quite cool.
My favourite release out of the whole lot is that Executioner dude with the Giga Axe.
Oh, is it? That's cool.
I love him.
Yeah, I do want to get him. The only thing... I would like him to be more dynamic, but that is because I'm a Khorne player. It's a lovely model, don't get me wrong. I feel he needs to be leaping. A little bit. What would be nice is opposed just like that dude out of Reign of Fire.
I quite like him like that, actually. I think there's a sinisterness to him. He almost doesn't care about what's going on around him. He's just sort of there.
No, he's just focused on
what his goal is. I like the hood, and the hood is close enough to the Space Wolf hood, like face masks from 30k, that I reckon with an awful lot of trimming and filing, I could get him to look like a Warlord from 30k.
He probably is. Just one that's
I knew you were going to say that, but no.
Yeah. Talking of...
Well, no, you're right, because any single Space Wolf that joined, converted to Chaos during the Heresy would end up being like a named character. Yeah. You're right.
Talking of turning to the right side and people that can make you do it, the Apostle, Dark Apostle, I love his little dudes.
Yes.
He himself, I'm not sure. Need to see it, but in the flesh. But the little dudes, definitely. So I'm going to get him because I want the little dudes, and I've got a model for it to be a Dark Apostle. So that's fine.
Yeah.
What's going to be... Abaddon's probably my favourite, in truth, because I just think it's incredible. It's so good. Everything about it is what I'd want from an Abaddon resculpt. But I do like the Havocs. I think they're really cool. I like the older style of weapons. Really ace.
The older style reimagined as well.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, really like them.
I like as well that they have, in their rules now, it is nice because they can move and fire without penalty, but that is because they've, warped talons to, anchor them down.
Yeah.
I quite like that idea.
You were thinking of getting, a squad to get up close and personal for your Khorne army, weren't you?
Yeah, I was kind of running it through in my head, and I remember reading an article a long time ago about flesh tearers. Somebody had done a flesh tearers army, and they had deliberately given their heavy weapons troopers heavy bolters and had them sort of running forward.
Yeah.
And I did like that idea, and I like the idea of a mental Khorne nut job that just loves. Well, there's one in the book, isn't there? There's one in the Black Legion book. Or Talon of Horus. He's a Khorne guy, but he's got a heavy bolter.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just think that they'd love it. I just think that they'd love it. Like, loads of noise, blood, gore everywhere.
Yeah, heavy bolter at close range can't be all that pretty, can it?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. And also,
people.
I've been thinking about the idea of Khorne and how, like, we were talking about it, weren't we? They must have.
They've got to be doing other things when they're not kicking the snot out of something.
Yeah. And so I like the idea that actually, once they get into combat, they do, like, lose themselves completely.
Have you ever read the book, The Space Marine Heroes?
Possibly.
And there's a story right, I think it might be the first or second one. And it's, I think it's an Iron Warriors dude and his little kind of unit of, like most trusted allies, or most trusted troopers. And they've gone to this planet where, there's like a tournament every year, I guess, or every rotation. And, right at the start, they're all sat in a pub, like tavern. The whole planet is chaos. Like, they're all chaos marines and chaos warriors. And, the guy who's kind of running the planet, or one of his would-be, opposition, sends like a Khorne warrior to sort of deal with him, to sort of make a point. And the way he's described, it's like a sort of bottled up rage just walks in the room. And then he gets trashed, by the way, because he's just about to flip out. And the captain, who's obviously the main character, kills him before he can even move. It's quite a cool scene, but I'd be worth you reading to have like an idea of what they're like when they're walking around, because it's one of the best descriptions I've ever read. I don't know if the book's still available, but I think it was called Heroes of the Space Marines or Space Marine Heroes. In the show notes, I'll post it up and the name of the book, because it will be available somewhere, and I'll obviously lend it to you to have a read. But it's really good because they're like contained energy. They're like it almost felt like a fusion reactor with at any point they could let the restraining field go and he would just explode and everything would go wrong. That's kind of how I felt reading about him. So yeah, I find that's probably the best description. But someone's got to look after their stuff. They've got to eat. They've got to take a crap.
Well, that's it. And they've got there's loads of things. Otherwise, I think what I said was that otherwise you're basically saying they're like Eversor assassins, where they go into stasis in between battles.
Yeah.
But
all flesh terror who've succumbed to the Black Rage, they're pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Kept in stasis and then
it would
unleashed.
kind of be cool in a way. I mean, maybe not, because it was always a bit of an ad hoc rule, but there used to be, it was orcs, wasn't it? And you rolled a dice and on a 1 they just went rah and charged towards the enemy.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
that's one of the things I love about the orcs now, is that they've brought back the cunning.
Yes.
There was a period where orcs were just brutal. And there was the odd one of the cunning, but orcs have always should be, and always should be forever, cunning but brutal, or brutal but cunning. That moment when they completely flip out and run is just one aspect of what they are.
Yeah.
I think they've done a good job of bringing that back, personally. But yeah, we're off topic. You were going on about chaos for
Yeah, I know. But I was just thinking about it, like, from, again, collector point of view, just expanding, but still keeping the theme. So I'd still look at, like, I'd get Havocs, but try and make them look a bit more mobile, and get, maybe even like do things like get the Khorne Berserker upgrade kit, use that, give a couple of them chain axes, but like slung on their back or whatever.
Yeah.
They just happen to be the ones that love a bit of heavy bolter action. Or
you can get chain axes as a separate sprue, or you could do before
Forge World sell them. I got a pack here somewhere.
Did they purge them?
I don't know.
I lost track of what they were getting rid of for a while. It's a crying shame. But mind you, if they were always when they were getting rid of something, there was always an alternative.
Yeah, I'd like some warp talons as well, because they're really good.
I love warp talons. I really do.
I just want the chance to use lots of different things, I think. But
warp talons are so different from a Space Marine assault marine. You know, they're like a separate entity completely.
Yeah. Well, they're good.
I really like them. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no comment on that. So what else? Because I'm sure that we've been a month and I can't.
Well, there's the Arc Machinator, the Lord Discordant.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty sweet. Going to be wanting one of them.
He's crazy. How do you go about designing? That's like straight out of John Blanche's nightmares. That is.
Yeah,
well, it is, isn't it? I mean, it's. As soon as you saw it, it's so 40k. It's so all over the place, and you're like, wow. And yet somehow you can believe it works.
It is mental. Yeah.
But that's a really good... I like that from your army's perspective, that it looks like a Khorne Dark Mechanicum person would be. Like, I've always find that the Tech Priests and the Tech Marines and the Mechanicum side of things always feel a little bit like the people you would have at the back doing stuff, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like firing the heavy bolter servitors or that big massive gun that one of them carries. I can never remember the name of it. The only one out of all of them I've ever seen where I felt like they would be at the front with their hammer smashing the snot out of things is the Iron Priest.
Yeah.
But that's it. And then that came out, and I can see that thing like right in the front line going, I'll have a bit of you, and just sort of taking machines apart in front of their, owners going, oh, you fancy walking to battle in a dreadnought? Well, that's a shame. I quite fancy the dreadnought. It seems like more of an offensive, more of an offensive unit. I like it as a Khorne model. I think it would really suit your army.
Oh yeah, well, it's definitely needed. Definitely. At some point. Well, it'll go well. My intention is to get it and use it to lead, I cannot remember what they call them. Like the detachment that's just 3 heavy support and a HQ.
Yeah, that would be wicked with your Forge Fiend things.
Yeah, 2 Forge Fiends and my Venom Crawler and him. That was my thought.
Yeah.
As like my little Demon Engine contingent.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Like that a lot. I don't think, when I'm collecting, I don't think about those kind of things.
Yeah, for me, that is I really like the structure that comes from the Force organization.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah. So I just paint the models that I like, rather than thinking, I'm going to paint a fast attack one. Whereas actually, you just saying that, I really like. And
it's part of the challenge for me as well, is to get stuff that fits.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And it also allows you to play around with your theme, and it is the single biggest thing that I missed when Warhammer went and was replaced by Age of Sigmar, was less about the points, but more about just some form of organisation.
Yeah.
To work towards, because I find that exciting.
Yeah.
I enjoy that.
And painting a whole Stormhost chamber is a little bit much.
Well, yeah.
You needed almost like a sub-chambers, didn't you, to get to grips? Anyway, that's the next section.
Yeah.
Oh. Did you see the Sisters of Battle stuff that came out?
Yeah.
Came out, but the vehicle upgrades. Oh, my days.
I know.
Every fortnight when those come out, I'm like, you do not need a Sisters of Battle army.
I really hope, though, that you buy one.
I love them, dude.
And I hope that not just you buy one, but lots of people buy them. Because lots of people have obviously said they'd like them. It must be a significant amount for Games Workshop to think, you know what, actually we will invest in this.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's got to work, because if it doesn't, it won't happen again.
No, that's very true. I mean, I've been interested in the Sisters of Battle since I started collecting my Black Templars, because my Black Templar army was based around the Age of Apostasy.
Mm-hmm.
Is it where the basically the ecclesiarchy effectively take over the Imperium, and the Black Templars are all out on some massive sort of edge of the galaxy crusade, and they come back, and they're like, what is going on? Basically, they're like, this is not how it's supposed to be, and we are like the closest chapter to the ecclesiarchy, and this guy is a bad person. That was the PG version of what I normally do for that bit, but and then they sort of charge their way straight to terror, and then it takes them doing that, but all the other Space Marines are like, oh yeah, they got a point. But they kind of join forces with, I think I can't remember specifically which one, but it's one of the Sisters of Battle sort of chambers, I can't remember what they're called, but join with them. And I was going to have an army based on the two of them together. I even sort of wrote sort of a background book about it at one point. But then Iron Snakes caught my eye and everything changed. And I got all these Sisters of Battle to paint, like squads of them, because I didn't want a full army. I just wanted a few squads within the Black Templar army. And I never got around to doing them. So they've always been there in the back of my mind as something I wanted to do. But I kind of feel now at this point, it's a bit of a shame really, isn't it? That I wouldn't want to go all in because it feels like everyone's going to do them.
Mm.
And I felt a little bit like that with my goblins. I mean, anyone who'd listened to us talk would know that I was all over the goblins from, theory onwards, frankly. But then when they got released, so many people have done them that it's funny, isn't it? You feel like you're lost in a sea of everyone doing the same thing. And when hobby is so personal, that can often be a little bit of a shame.
Yeah.
But I think I'd have to stick with my guns with what I said at the start of the year, because the goblins have taken up so much of my time, and it's, 2 months down the line from when I said I would have had my goblins finished, and I've painted nowhere near even half of them. So I think I'm going to have to stick with my first comment right at the start of the year. I'm not going to invest in more than one army a year.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll never get my backlog of stuff done.
No.
Ever.
Very true. Very true, and it just keeps on growing, doesn't it?
Having said that, the Sisters of Battle will be released, and I'll be like, oh my god!
Well, that's why I'm not saying anything now, dude.
Yeah.
I'll just wait and see.
Right. On that note, shall I lead us on into the Mortal Realms?
Yeah.
Woo!
Mortal Realms! Born to live forevermore.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Mortal Realms.
Enjoy them while you can, before they drown in blood.
Yet another chaos segment. Oh. So just to give me a break, and I think some people, other people a break, can we talk about the other stuff before we get onto your corn book? Oh, okay. Or do you think we'd rather get the corn book out of the way? Let's get the corn book out of the way.
I don't mind, because it will all be overshadowed by the awesome red stain.
Yeah.
Of cornness.
Okay.
Go on then. What else has come out then?
We have had
that's enough of that. More importantly, my new corn book is absolutely amazing, dude. And I was nervous. And I've been through the stages, as I always do. But I absolutely love it. And I love it because it's changed things. And, you can't just rock up with the same stuff you always did now. Which is great. And although I haven't managed to actually use one of my judgments because my priests were basically... they were rubbish. It was so funny. I played Ben and... I had two priests, next to the Altar of Skulls, which means that they could re-roll their prayer rolls.
Yeah.
And no word of a lie, one of them, 2 turns in a row, took D3 mortal wounds. So to understand what I'd done there, I'd rolled a 1 and re-rolled it and rolled another 1. Twice. It was so
amazing.
Funny. Yeah, really different. Different abilities to check out. Obviously, you've got the Judgments, you've got the Skull Altar of Skulls, sorry. Wizard's Tower, yeah. I'm looking forward to playing more games with them. I'm looking forward to adding different units. Certainly some more mortals into the army.
Really?
Yeah.
That's one of the things I love about Age of Sigmar. And it happens with the General's Handbook every year. And it often happens or seems to have happened when they rewrite the books, is that they're not afraid to change the balance of an army almost completely, or even the whole game. Take it from hordes to smaller units, from smaller units to hordes, or, so that the game is constantly changing. So you're not going to just, essentially in Warhammer Fantasy Battle, my High Elf army, when I first started collecting in 1994, operated in virtually exactly the same way as the High Elf army that I was using right up until the end. It would be 7th edition because I never played 8, but it would never changed. It was the same concept. Perhaps the only big change was that that point where I always struck first. That was it. The dynamic of the army wasn't really changed and all that much. Now they're quite happy to just turn it on its head. I love it. I think it's brilliant because it means when a new book comes out, you're in for a surprise. However you look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool.
You don't really know what's going to happen. Even if it's just a sort of redo of a book with no models, like it's essentially what happened to you.
Yeah.
But then if they'd have released any more Khorne models, because I think there is a deficit of Khorne models in Age of Sigmar.
Oh my goodness, there are so many. There are so many things. I know I say this all the time. There are so many things I want to add that I haven't painted yet.
Yeah.
And I want to add more of what I've already painted. I was looking at, I've got behind me on the table, there's 1,500 points just laid out from the game I played against Ben. And rather than put them away, I thought I'm just going to set them up to look nice, just to look at. And I was looking and I was like, I need another Bloodthirster. And actually, I need 3 more because I need a Scarbrand. This is the thing, right? The book has so many interesting choices that you want to be able to pick and choose from everything.
Yeah.
I really want those guys riding Juggernauts now. The Skull Crushers.
I'd have had them anyway because they look absolutely awesome.
Yeah, they do look awesome. They do look awesome. To be honest, I would have any of it anyway because it all looks awesome, but even more so now. Yeah. Oh, and Corgus Cull is getting a book series. You seen that?
Is he really?
Yeah, I cannot wait. It's on pre-order at the moment. I shall probably invest in that, which has been a while. Do you know, the last time I picked, genuinely really was excited to see a book was on its way and then picked it up and read it was Khan the Betrayer novel.
Really?
And that was a long time ago. So I just don't read like I used to, as you know, because you like to mock me for it.
Well, I'm not sure you can read, if I'm being honest.
No, neither am I. So I don't take the risk.
I'm still buzzing from a Realm Slayer.
Oh yeah, well that is amazing.
I've listened to it again. I've listened to it twice.
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Oh, that's good.
Absolutely
I'm glad
brilliant.
you loved it. It is ace. It is ace, and I'm really pleased because it just had to be. Brian Blessed. We used to talk about that in the shop, like how cool it would be to have Brian Blessed do voices and stuff, and then it happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that. The Red Feast, it's called. Book 1 of the Cull. It's called. So I'm going to have to get that.
It'd be nice to actually give him a bit more of a personality, because at the moment he's just like a almost faceless bad guy that got in the way of Vander's Hammerhand as he got.
He's a bit more. I think if you read a bit more of the background, like that's in, because the thing with Age of Sigmar, because it is new and there's lots of forging the narrative going on, it is all over the place, and it's easy to have missed bits. But,
yeah.
So there has been some cool stuff with him, but yeah, I agree. It will be really nice to see that. And I'm interested for much the same reason as I was saying to you about Khorne Berserkers and Khorne. I am interested to see, what it is to be a Khorne follower when you're not in battle.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of that in the podcast, in Stormcast, actually. They talk about it a few times. The writers talk about how actually in the Age of Chaos, it's not all humans still need to live. Chaos don't want the humans to disappear. They kind of need them to exist. So in some ways, for some of them, actually the coming of Age of Sigmar was a bit unwelcome, because it's like, well, hang on, this is the status quo. I'm getting fed and water and some form of shelter, and my life is pretty poo, but you coming and creating a war has just made it a whole load worse.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of a little bit like, so what is this dude up to? Can you just leave us alone? Because it's bad enough as it is. And then obviously the story needs to play out, and Signar needs to be victorious and set up those cities for them to be like, I get it.
Yeah.
This isn't what life was all meant to be.
Yeah, well, because some of them will, a lot of them, well, loads of them actually, for them, that will be life. That is the norm.
Yeah.
They've never
known anything
they've
different.
never known, not only have they never known anything different, they've never known of anything different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I've really enjoyed listening to those Stormcasts, and I wouldn't mind having a little bit of a natter about them, but I'll let you finish your Chaos stuff first.
Well, that's all right. I'm nearly done. I was actually going to move on a little bit and say, alongside Realmslayer being awesome, as an full abridged audiobook, the Soul Wars is turning out to be fantastic.
Yeah,
really good. Goes in. There's lots of stuff about the Anvil of Apotheosis and the Soul Mills and what's going on in the Sacrosanct Chambers. It's so good. And I was, I was driving home and I was listening to a bit, and I was just like, I flipping love the Mortal Realms. I just got really excited and wanted to do like Hammerhal and get out, when it comes out, the RPG for Mortal Realms. I just love the idea of exploring them.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what's so cool is they're in Glimsforge, right? In the book. And it just reads like they're in the flipping Empire, but they're a Stormcast. Yeah. So it's like everything that was awesome about the Warhammer world, but with added vavavoom. Basically. It's so good, because you can be like walking through the streets of this like run-down place, like Tudor-esque buildings and crap like that. And then like part of the city could get up because actually that part's been built on some kind of crazy ass monster mountain beast that exists in the Mortal Realms. It can all be in there.
Yeah. I was looking at those buildings by that terrain company's name I've forgotten briefly. Remember we had that conversation about, and you said they're a bit Warhammer rather than Age of Sigmar.
Foreground?
No, that really nice company. I think it's just called Wargames Terrain.
Oh, yeah, I know who you mean.
The Resin Mob.
The Resin Mob.
Links will be posted in the in the show notes, but they make lovely resin terrain with like medievally kind of buildings. Yeah.
Yeah, but listening to Soul Wars is that, well, I don't know. I think I'm just going to repeat myself. It's just, you can have all of that, but still be in the mortal realms and still have those other supremely fantastical things going on.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. Absolutely love it. So definitely worth a listen. John, if you're listening, that's why I shouted out Soul Wars to you when you asked what book to listen to.
Cool.
So, yeah, I think that's probably it on the corner. I have looked through the book a fair bit and started reading it, but we don't go in for the in-depth stuff, do we, really? It's mostly me just shouting skulls and getting excited. I want to paint up a unit of 40 Blood Reavers with Man Ripper axes.
Yeah.
Because I think they'll be ace. You wanted to talk a bit about Stormcast.
Oh, well, I've just been reading so much about Age of Sigmar and listening to the podcast. The other day, painting my Squigs, I had a week off, and the kids were still at school, so I spent the days painting and listening to Stormcast, and I got really excited about just the way they're thinking about things and how much things are getting fleshed out, and details will come back to me as I'm talking, but their kind of approach to Age of Sigmar feels where they're planning for the future. I mean, things that it's almost happening naturally now was one of the things I took away from it. So things like Silver. Oh my goodness me! The first Underworlds. Shadespire. Started as just a setting for the game and has now become like a genuine place. It is now a landmarked thing, like in any of the cities of the old world would have been, as a setting. And that happened almost by accident. And, that will continue to happen and flesh it out. But yeah, there's some great episodes in there if people haven't listened to it, talking about the way they're approaching, not just thinking about writing the books. One of the things I quite liked about one of their design ethos is, as always, these things come back from the models. So the models, I don't know if anyone knows this, but they do talk about it a lot on the Games Workshop podcast. So everything starts with the miniature. So the miniatures literally come to the rules writing and background team, and then they have to, write about them. In some ways, of course, they get to go back to the designer and go, "What were you thinking when you put that in? What was your inspiration for that?" And often, by the sounds of it, they're even sat in those design meetings or nearby, listening to the process to try and pick up a little bit of that from the sort of the genesis of the model. Mm-hmm. But there's some really cool things that, that they do now. So I think he said between 4 and 6 builds for each army is what they aim for. So you can have at least 4, but hopefully 6 different ways of properly playing your army is built into the rules now. So, it's like I was talking about going back earlier. There was really only 1 or 2 ways to play High Elves in my experience. Now, if you play an elf army, there would be at least 4, if not 6 different unique ways of playing with them.
Yeah.
And that's using virtually the same models almost. I'm not talking about using the range. I mean, because, for example, with the High Elves, you could have gone for a very fast attacky with chariots and sky cutters and all that kind of stuff. But that was only really towards the end, if we're being honest. Mm-hmm. There wasn't really that much options to change the way you played them as such. If an army came against you, you'd be like, I know roughly how these are going to operate. So that really excited me, the way they were trying to think about giving you that range of stuff. But I'm going to go because obviously the Grots have been released and there's some excellent stuff in there. So the Gobblepalooza, they had you can almost imagine the rules writers and the background writers getting that box of models, can't you? And being like, what is that? What is that dude doing? So the one that stuck in my mind is they're talking about the dude with the funny mask, and riding on a skull.
Yeah.
So what they decided was, I love this so much, that if they worship the moon, then they're probably afraid of the sun or the light of Hish. So that would be like a demon entity to them. And, so that's what the mask is. The guy on the top is like the representation of the Light of Heesh. And, so they were like, so what about the Squig skulls? So they decided that, back in the sort of dawn of grot history, there was this massive sort of god beast squig who got so cross with the sun, he tried to jump up and bite it out of the sky, and ended up getting burnt to death by the sun because it was too strong, and then died. And actually there is now like a whole kind of goblin settlement built around this massive skeleton of a squig. So it must exist, but they have no idea why it's dead, but they've come up with the only reason why they could possibly conceive that a squig that massive could be dead, which is, so, that's what that model is, that, that must be the most scary thing to them imaginable. The sun, riding on the back of the most ginormous squig ever. So it must be scary to everyone else, right? Surely. So, I just think that's absolutely fantastic. And what was the other one there's three I've got? So the second one was bottles. They were looking at all the bottles all over the models and being like, so how does a goblin make a bottle? So they decided that actually bottles to them, they can't make them, so they have to nick them. So they're almost like a currency. So they'll go into like a town just to raid the bottles and nick them and bring them home. So when they're rampaging through these towns, rather than like actively ransacking everything, if they went into an alchemy shop, they'd be carefully collecting all these bottles and putting them in a cart to take home, which I just think is an absolutely brilliant mental image of like wanton destruction apart from where the bottles are, because they're just desperately trying to keep them intact. It's great, isn't it?
Yes.
And the third one was, the Trogos. There's, I can't remember what it's called, but essentially when the Trogos go to war, they're not really going to war. It's just that the biggest of them has decided to wander off. And then they all follow him.
The Trogbergs, isn't it? Trogbergs.
Yeah. And, it's a bit like an avalanche, but no one around them, none of the people living in the towns realise this. They think that the trolls are on the attack. I can't remember which one of the writers was talking about it, but he was like, well, they don't realise if they walked like 10 miles west and waited for them to pass by, they could go back to their houses because they would just wander through the town.
Yeah.
I just think it's so good. It's so much depth. I think that's great. Really did. Absolutely love it. So that's like from the best bit for me from the most recent Stormcast episodes. And I would encourage people to go and listen to them because there's a lot of insight in there that, has really helped me to see where the game is going and understand why it is where it is too. Stormcast. Do you mind if I have a little ramble about them?
No, that's fine. Go for it.
You're going to have to help me with the name because I've forgotten them.
Yeah, that's all right.
What's the name of your storm chamber?
Oh, the Hallowed Knights.
Hallowed Knights. So there's an article on the Hallowed Knights in the latest White Dwarf, and it was a bit of a revelation for me. I always thought that every Stormcast that got reforged had the same negative effects happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't realise is that because they're all uniquely chosen because they're similar in some way, they're all sort of the same and different from other Stormcast chambers. So every Stormcast chamber has, or Stormhost, has a really distinct character because they're all chosen, maybe from all over the mortal realms. They might come from fire, or they can come from Land of Beasts, or they might all come from the Land of Beasts, but they're all got a unique thing that binds them together. And because of that, when they get reforged, they all come out differently. So we're talking about the Hallowed Knights. Actually, when they get reforged, they become more and more angelic to the point where, like, if they've had multiple reforgings, they literally glow with divine energy. And I jumped out of my chair and I was like, oh, that is so awesome. I want to collect them now. And then I realised I'd already painted a load of mine. But the thought that your Stormhost is becoming more of what their archetype is with every reforging. Yeah, they're losing stuff, but they're gaining stuff at the same time. So that Hallowed Knight that's had 4 or 5 reforgings might not remember where he's come from, but is like almost like a angelic automaton of purity striding into battle.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely loved that. Like, genuinely loved that. But you're right, that I don't know where I would have read that before. I mean, I haven't covered the Stormcast book. Which is a bit of a shame, because only just because I haven't had time, but I have picked it back off the shelf since I've read that, because I'm desperate to read all those other bits that I've missed, because I think that's just fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it is cool. Very cool, in fact. That article's a good one. White Dwarf's ace at the moment. Really like it.
I'm hoping that I completely agree. I'm hoping what they do is what they used to do, because some of the White Dwarf articles are so good, excuse me, that before they've defined some of the background for things. Really good example is the Index Astartes.
Oh yeah.
So there was 4 books of Index Astartes that are just collections of White Dwarf articles brought together, and they were the definitive background for the Space Marine Legions for years almost, up until they started writing the Horus Heresy series. And I really want them to collect together, because they've said they're going to do Index Astartes and then the Stormhost ones, aren't they? Alternating over the, I really hope that they go back and do the same thing again.
Yeah.
And create like an Index Astartes compendium,
that would be really good, actually, wouldn't it?
It would be brilliant. I think it'd be brilliant. I really do, because having that kind of depth. I mean, that article is far more in depth than anything in any of the army books. Could really sense what the Hallowed Knights were about. Like little details, like that they must have taken from books that aren't in the army book. Like they carry around bits of Chaos Artifact because, in their reliquaries. Yeah. Did you know this? Yeah, to test their purity.
Yeah, that's it.
Because they're like, well, if I'm wearing a bit of a Chaos Demon, then no Chaos Demon's going to tempt me because it's been hanging around my waist for the last 6 months.
Yeah. I love them. I really like the Hallowed Knights. I really like
But it makes me excited to read about what the others are going to be like. To get a better understanding of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my little... I've had a bit of a background month for Age of Sigmar, really. I've been really loving it. And I've now just pulled out the Deepkin book because Jo's been painting her Ledger, Soul Ledger dude. I've been reading about them a little bit. Just the opening pages. There's nothing I haven't read yet, but this is the problem, that there's so much going on. I want to read the Stormcast book and the Gloomspire bits book and not enough time in the day.
There absolutely is not.
We need the codex as audio books, Dan, so I can listen to them. Yep. Yeah. So, I played a game last week before, Age of Sigmar. I played my Iron Jaws versus Marcus. Marcus has just started playing Age of Sigmar, which is really cool because we sat down and we've laid the foundations for the Firestorm Plateau campaign with me, him, and Ross.
Oh, that's cool. That is very cool.
He's playing Daughters of Cain, but he's got an army of ogres. And they are quite interesting to play against, Dan. Have you played against ogres?
No.
So they're tough as hell. They're really tough. They've got 5 wounds each, I think. 4 or 5.
Oh, blimey.
But they've got this rule where, this fist spike things?
Yeah.
If you kill them, they do a mortal wound to you on a roll of something. I can't remember what, but it's enough that it's quite intimidating. Especially because, not surprisingly, units like the Brutes, which get to reroll hits against units with, I think it's 5 or more wounds. So ogres, effectively, when you're doing mortal wounds back at them for killing them, it's really damaging. You almost want to sort of swamp them with a horde unit, like a goblin unit, really, where they're not going to be too bothered by losing a goblin from a mortal wound. rather than your brutes, which are innately better at dealing with them.
Mm.
It's great. It's quite a really interesting army to play against. He, unfortunately, rolled 4 1s on one of his attacks against my war boss, and then got absolutely pounded, his tyrant, which was a real shame. It was one of those moments in the game where actually I saw the dice hit the deck, and I felt really bad. I was like, oh, it's kind of that epic battle has been turned into, nothing, really. I think there's sometimes, especially when you're not a competitive player, where you watch a player's dice drop and you're like, oh, that's a real shame. I'm really sorry about that. You almost want to get them to re-roll them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, even though it is a game of dice and chance, it's still frustrating when one sort of undoes your best plans.
Yeah. Or undoes the narrative a little bit. Because it was sort of shaped up to be this huge duel between our 2 war bosses right at the middle. And it ended up with him firing his 2 pistols and missing, which he jokingly said, I guess he just pulled his pistols and fired them in the air like a pirate would or something. And then he's charged down my war boss and just sort of flailed at him and gone, Rrr! And then my war boss has gone, Tog! It knocked him straight dead. It was, I suppose in some ways it's quite funny, but, the competitive streak in him, I think, was just killed dead on that point. Which is a real shame. And I hate watching a player go through that, because it's not, I think for me, I've said it before, I'm as much about the person I'm playing having a laugh as I am.
Yeah.
That's really important to me. There we go. Have we got time in this section to quickly talk about Jervis Johnson's amazing article on a code of conduct for Age of Sigmar?
I think so. Yeah, go for it.
That is in the White Dwarf 2, and it's a series of... He's written a wonderful sort of reflection on how he was trying to approach setting a set of rules for, particularly to deal with a problem that they were having, which is people dragging out a turn to negatively impact their opponent in a tournament. And he tried a whole bunch of solutions, including, thinking about like chess clocks like they do in War Machine, actually. But he found that none of them were really satisfactory. And then he was reading a piece of evidence, and I can't remember from where, but it was a study done on people making choices. And I think it was to steal or not steal an item, actually. And what he found, the study proved scientifically, that if you remind people of their morals before they do something, they're more likely to behave in a moral way. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, and he thought, well, why not have that kind of approach to Age of Sigmar, where you actually sort of go through, this is the way you should play. We'd like you to bear that in mind and see what happens. And that's what this article is about. But it's a really, really nice set of guidelines on how to play in a nice kind of way. So that everyone gets as much enjoyment from the game as possible. And there's one part of it that really struck home for me, because I've been notoriously unlucky, and so many people say this, but there was a period where I was playing in Games Workshop Plymouth where it became like a running joke that I would roll under 50% of what I should be doing. I mean, we've had that joke. People kind of have known it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's never really bothered me that much. But sometimes you can find yourself playing a game and going, oh, I'm being so unlucky, or, oh, look how many sixes you're rolling, and, oh, you're jammy git, and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that he mentioned in the article was how he'd sort of commented on how his wife is naturally lucky at blackgammon. And then on writing this article, he'd reflected about how much that takes away from how skilled she is at doing it too. And that really struck a chord with me. And I'm going to make a concerted effort not to criticize someone's dice rolling, not criticize, but complain about how lucky they've been or how unlucky I've been, because I think he's absolutely right. I can really, people are playing the odds all the time in the game. And actually, if you're being beaten by someone, it might be about the dice, but also there's a lot more to it than that. And if you're saying, oh, you're rolling so many sixes this game, I think it can come across as you're not taking into account that they're actually playing well as well. And that really struck home for me. So personally, I'm going to take that a lot away from that article. And I've asked White Dwarf via their Facebook page to release a PDF version. So I'm going to laminate it and take it with me every time I play a game and read through it to try and just sort of ground myself again.
Yeah, I think that sort of thing's ideal, mate, to be honest.
So I've ranted on again. Bit pent up energy over a month. Is there anything more you wanted to say in the Immortal Realms, dude, or should we doodle on over to the community?
I think we'll doodle on over, dude.
Cool. Well, I'll see you in the community then, fella.
Third time lucky. Hail, mighty community. We have tried to record this last night and I fell asleep. And that isn't even an exaggeration. Just listen to Mortal Realms, and the long pauses towards the end. There we go. That's a family podcast for you with little children. And then we tried to do it again, and Ben's computer developed a mind of its own and started playing another part of the podcast back to him in the background.
Yep.
Excellent. So here we go.
Third time's a charm.
Yep. And do you know what? The first two times the intro was the best intro ever. The greatest intro in the world. As some
this
popular son.
Yeah,
absolutely. This is just a tribute. So Ben, shout outs.
Yeah, shout-outs. I love doing shout-outs.
Do you?
I could do.
I'm sure I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, only like 30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've chosen 2 this week or this month to 2 completely different reasons. So the first one is because of his absolutely epic Gloomspire gitz. Is Bobby Thompson, and he's on Instagram as Bob Dogs Paints. The dogs is with a Z. Obviously, the links will be on our release posts and show notes. And he's done some really fantastic work on his Gloomspire gitz. There's loads of different colours going on. I suppose it's the reason why they caught my eye, because they were kind of the sort of thing I was looking for. He's done some really cool stuff, like giving them blue gums with like screamer pink skin. So they're really colourful. It's basic rot's sort of a yellowy golden browny tone, which complements the purple really nicely. And he's done his trolls in the kind of old, the greens that they did the standard trolls that kind of came and went with Skull Pass.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I forget what they're called now.
Just trolls.
Sour Breath trolls.
Oh right, yes.
That's it, wasn't? Yeah. He's done those in sort of greens and flesh tones that I really like. And I might be pinching that, but the thing I really like about it is that he's really sort of open with his painting guides. He's sort of almost every model he's painted, he's got a post on Instagram telling people the colours he's used. And I love that kind of thing. You know, people helping others to work out what's going on so they can have a shot themselves. I think that's really awesome. What I thought was really cool, scrolling back, is having a look at some of his earlier stuff, that I hadn't seen, obviously, before. His Ultramarines are just absolutely fantastic, Dan. And I know you like a bit of Ultramarines, but I think I started following him when he was doing his Nighthawk, because they were quite striking with the red and blue. But way back before that, his Ultramarines, particularly love his Redemptor Dreadnought. The weathering on it is absolutely fantastic. So he's one to follow. Bob Dogs Paints. The second one I wanted to give a shout out was because as I'm sort of trawling around looking for stuff, I often come across things that I think Dan would like. And we've been talking a lot about you doing a World Eaters army, haven't we, Dan? And I came across a chap called Correctamundo Brushworks, which is an ace name. And he has done some absolutely superb World Eaters stuff, with like rusty chains all over them, and the weathering is just phenomenal. He's big into his weathering. In fact, that's sort of one of the catchphrases of his account, addicted to weathering. He's done sort of like Mechanicum stuff to mix in with the core units in white and red as well. I just think they're fantastic. I think they're absolutely great. And I think they link back to what we were talking about the last couple of episodes really nicely. And to be honest, it's one of the best accounts of weathering that I've come across.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely superb. They're the ones I linked to you the other day, Dan. With the Leviathan Dreadnought.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's great. It's one of those. He's one of those modelers that's clearly into telling a narrative with his models. Like there's a great one where a guardsman's just about to get stomped by the Leviathan, and he's already lost a leg, and he's trying to crawl away. It's fantastically done. So yeah, great account for weathering and all things World Eaters by the look of it. It's Correctamundo Brushworks.
Sounds excellent. All things World Eaters.
Yeah, and the last thing I'd like to shout out to is it's weird. I don't really understand Twitter. It's taken me a year and a half really to even remotely get my head around it, because I've never used it before. Well, neither of us have we, Dan? And
nope, I still haven't used it a great deal.
It's only occurred to me over the last couple of months how the communities are sort of formed. Because on Facebook, it's quite easy to have a community. They have a page normally, but on Twitter it appears to, and I might be completely wrong, and it would like cement my ignorance with the platform. They use hashtags, so we've often used the hashtag Warmongers, and it's only really become apparent for me over the last couple of weeks how much of a community that in itself is. The people who use hashtag Warmongers, and I'd just like to say a huge thank you to that community for the warm reception they gave my wife when she posted her first models and started an account this week. It's really, really cool to see a community behaving in that way. And it's absolutely everything I love about this hobby. So that's a huge thank you from me.
Well, that's jolly nice of you.
Well, it's not jolly nice of me. It's jolly nice of them. So,
yes.
And talking about jollies, you've got a few shout outs yourself. Oh, look at that segue.
Well, that's excellent, except that this week I was going to concentrate mostly on the competition.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
But good effort though, mate. Good effort.
I know. I tried.
So Shiny was the title, and that put me in mind of the crab from Moana. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I love that song.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. So anyway, if you've not seen that, go stop listening to this rubbish and go and watch that film because it's excellent. And the winner for this month was Geraint with his Navigator. So absolutely fantastic, really, really nice work. And that model's very, very small as well. So really good.
Yeah.
Henry Steele's Abaddon conversion, also very, very good. Ben's Blood Angel, very, very good. So a number of really, really nice entries. Thank you to everybody that entered. And I'm very sorry if I didn't shout you out then, because I could just go down the list of everyone. But those ones popped in my head. So this month, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a bit late in the piece. It's halfway through the month, but that's
still 2 weeks to enter.
But you know why? Because it snuck up on you. Because it's stealth. That's why.
It is stealth.
Is it? Yeah.
It is stealth.
Yeah, it is stealth. I wasn't sure if
you chose it this month, so.
Well, I chose it because I was looking at the new Space Marines in Shadowspear, and I thought they looked cool, and people might want to paint some. So
there's loads of options for this as well. I mean, you could do a Predator from Alien vs Predator. You can do just about half the Tau range. You could do Slambo, Slimarbo. You could do an Alfarius, a member of the Alpha Legion. There's loads you can do. It's a nice topic. I quite like it.
Have we even done a post about it?
Yeah, I think we have. On the end of the other one. Maybe something for you to go and check, Dan.
Maybe. Quick, put in some kind of filler. You could sing Shiny.
I don't know the lyrics to Shiny. Not anymore. I used to.
Well, that's a ridiculous excuse. So yeah, that is the competition. So thank you very much. Now, those three. Now, is it three? Yeah, it's been three.
Yeah, the top three from the first three competitions.
From the three will now be put into a post, which will be to win
on our main page. Yeah,
to win something cool that we have yet to decide.
In cooperation with Curtain Games, so it is going to be cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it'll be good. Don't be worrying. I don't think I have done a post, which is a bit poor, isn't it? Oh yes.
Yes, Dan, yes. It's very poor.
Yes, I have. In fact, I think you might have done it because there's a big stealth bomber there.
No, that was you.
Oh, okay. Well, I've done it.
We're literally becoming more like a married couple every day. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, Tom has posted that fantastic image of the guy with like a big, he's got like a big foil pipe that he runs along and he puts it over himself and then leans against the wall. So it looks like it's just a pipe coming out of the wall.
Yeah, I was expecting someone to post the Raven Guard gif where they're sneaking between the trees in power armor. That's always a good one.
Sneaky.
Right, so now we've sort of covered that lot, and we really are excited.
I'm sorry, but I've got to shout. I wasn't going to go shouting out because I was going to do the bit about the competition. But Simon, Roger, Brian Andrews, those powers of Guldur are absolutely flipping stunning.
They are. They really are.
See, I've not been a fan up to now of the new Ringwraith models. But they look great the way he's done them.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
That is really good. And Sean, stop flipping painting so much because you make me feel bad.
Yeah, he's smashing his hobby pledges, isn't he?
Yeah. And Ian, what on earth, Ian? I love House Cadmus. They're the dudes that I like. And Ian's done them, but done them well. And oh my goodness, they look so good. Oh, dear. This is not helpful. Not helpful at all.
It's good. That's the whole point of this section, dude, is to shout at the people doing awesome work.
I know.
And there really is some incredible stuff going on our hobby forum, and it's a pleasure to see it every day. So,
yeah. Oh, well, we're on hobby as well. Not that they'll necessarily be listening, but a massive well done to Mel and Dave for the Terrain Essentials Kickstarter, which has just smashed its way through everything, and it's closed now, but it is going to be brilliant, mate. I am so excited to get that book.
Yeah, they're great, and
really excited.
I am too. It's about time, really, to be honest.
Yeah,
the guy's forgotten more about terrain making than most hobbyists have ever known. So,
yes, absolutely. Cool. So, right, I think I will let you move on now.
Well, if I don't push us forward, we'll never finish the episode.
No, that's true.
So we were going to have a chat about the community survey. I adore the community survey. It is a chance for everyone to get involved. I was slightly sceptical last year because I get dozens of surveys from various different companies sent my direction, both from my profession and my hobbies, and nothing ever happens as a result of them, you know. So I was always sceptical. I always am sceptical of surveys, but I think it is fair to say that as a direct result of the last one, we have seen immediate changes, and that's really positive. It could be some of those things were already in the pipeline already, but I doubt they all were. Yeah. So when the community survey dropped on my desk this week, I was super excited. Immediately filled it out. because I feel it in my bones that they are genuinely taking heed of what we're all saying, and doing their best to make this hobby as awesome as possible. So I would strongly encourage everybody who is at all interested in Games Workshop, to grab 5 or actually probably took me 20 minutes, I think, Dan, of their time and go and sit down and do it. And if you do it, there's a chance to win a Sisters of Battle Army, which might solve my previous conundrum on this. Darn it. I will never win it. But there we are. So we were going to talk through sort of the themes and have a little chat about what we felt about those main themes, to sort of not influence anyone in any way, but just because it's fun.
Well, basically, I absolutely need to influence everyone to write in to explain how Glade Guard for Wanderers are overpowered, because they have -3 Ren. That's my crusade. Hashtag Glade Guard are too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
got nothing to do with
I don't at all struggle to beat an army which has only got a General's Handbook update when I've had like 3 battle tomes since it came out. Not at all. Ever. So, first up, I think they ask a bit about warhammercommunity.com, don't they? And what sort of resources you'd like to see. So I know you've responded, as you've just said already. I've not done mine yet. But I certainly will be. So what sort of things were you looking to see from the resource online, dude?
One of the things that they were asking is which one do I use the most? And I found that a really difficult question to answer, because I found a lot of it is really, really good. And so the one that ended up at the bottom of the list was their Twitch channel. But only because I don't manage to find the time to sit down and watch it. I'm always really interested to see what comes out of the conversations that are on there, and they often get posted secondhand by people. So, I didn't really have a very much to add to what they're offering already. I mean, any resources they put up there would be super useful. It would be cool to see it turn into a library of things, such as the painting guides and that kind of stuff, like organised on there in a slightly more accessible way. I thought that would be quite useful. The only thing I thought to add was that as well as all that they're already doing sort of videos on Tactica, sort of army tactics, or maybe even sort of background videos, in the same way that they do the painting videos. So how would you use a unit of these? You know, so you've just bought your unit, you can go on there, you can search that unit, and you can watch a 10-20 minute video on how someone who actually knows what they're talking about would use them. Yeah. So that's the only thing I could think of adding. For me, the thing I go on community page every day because, I enjoy a lot of the articles. I read most of them. I tend to find I get enjoyment from places that I didn't expect to. So sometimes I'll look at the title of an article and think, I'm not really all that interested in it, but I've made it a habit to give them a shot because there's almost always something interesting in there that I didn't see coming.
Yeah.
So, and mainly because I think one of the beauties of this hobby is so many people do it in different ways that it's really cool to see how somebody else approaches something, or see what somebody else has done, or hear what their view is on it, because I haven't seen it that way. And I actually had a really kind of enlightening moment with Sat talking to Jo, where she schooled me on Age of Sigmar, like flat out. Cause she'd painted her Sylvaneth, and they're all pretty. She's like, I don't see why you have to make everything so grim and grimy and covered in blood, because things can look pretty while they're defending themselves, don't you know? There's room for that in Age of Sigmar. I'm sure there is. And I was like, I have just been schooled. Like that. And she's completely right. You know, there is room for that. There is somewhere in Age of Sigmar, there will be an army of Sylvaneth that like kick ass while looking good at the same time. And there will be a unit of almost all of them who did, you know, any race apart from maybe Khorne, I think. Perhaps.
No, it's not a unit. It's the entire collection of corn.
Who aren't going to look all
good.
shiny and pretty while they're doing it.
While they're kicking butt.
But anyway, I mean, the point was made very, very well that actually, I would never have painted my models in the way she's painted hers. And she would never paint hers in the way I paint mine. And having those perspectives put into articles, I find really eye-opening. So I always give every one of them a shot. That's, yeah. How about you? What do you find your interaction with the Warhammer community?
So firstly, I think that they should pay an obscene amount of money to a dude from Bristol and one from Bodmin to talk every couple of weeks on Warhammer community. That's my top level feedback.
Yeah.
Them. So underneath that, I think that your idea, and I will be honest, I've just blatantly just heard you say it and thought, actually, that's a flipping great idea. Background video type things or podcasts, because so again, time wise, so it's all about making everything accessible. So I love the Horus Heresy, for example. Lots of side bits and pieces have gone on in the Heresy that I don't know about, and I don't currently have time to read umpteen books to get to know it all. So it would be wonderful to have, some little mini snippets or updates, just so that you kind of could fill in a few blanks,
Yeah.
So like you could have each of the settings, and you could have Age of Sigmar, the Realmgate Wars, and it could do the Realmgate Wars, obviously, and then the Soul Wars, and you could have Battles of the All Points, and, what are God Beasts? And there's like a chat through what God Beasts are. That would be ace, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I think I
did spend a long time trying to think of an answer to that one, because,
that's a good idea. I will give you that. That is a good idea. And the other thing I'd like to see is more of the resource, so War Scroll Builder, I think is excellent. Combat Roster, I haven't really used much. It didn't quite do it for me. But it would be great to see something closer to the type of thing Battle Scribe is, maybe. But do the same for Blood Bowl, Necromunda. I mean, there are some great community resources. And so there's no reason they can't just get in contact with those guys. Yak Tribe, which does the builder for Necromunda, is excellent. With a little bit of technical know-how and jiggery pokery or whatever, that could be incorporated in. I think that would be really good to see. Those are my couple of cents, I think, on the website. Like you, I do visit Warhammer community every day just to have a look, see what's on there. So the second thing, events. So what feedback did you have, Ben, for events?
I'm a big fan of all the events that I've been to so far at Warhammer World, and I said as much, and I haven't been to many, but I've been to enough, and we hear enough feedback from people locally to know that the events being run by local games workshops and local independent community stores are really good as well. Particularly, you've got Big up there doing great work, and I told them about that, and Curtin as well, and Dark Star Gaming, Terra Games, all putting on great events. I did say that I thought it would be cool if they gave a little bit more support to those independent tournaments, but I wasn't really sure how they could do that, if that makes any sense. Maybe like a tournament pack or something, I don't know. But I couldn't clarify it very easily. Yeah. That was my 2 pence worth. They did, on events, they did also ask about, which I thought was quite interesting. They asked about both game systems and what I felt about some of the rules. And I'm not going to talk about the individual rules because, frankly, everyone's got an opinion on those and they're all going to be different. And that's what the survey's about. Some of us will like the rules and some of us won't. And my view is, generally, as a rule, I'd rather keep them in, because, you can choose not to use them rather than not have them there and then make up ones, if that makes any sense at all. They asked about feedback, ways we can improve the 3 styles of playing. So open, narrative, and matched. I didn't have a great deal to say on matched because I don't play much of it. I thought some kind of unwrapping kind of series of events thing for narrative games would be quite cool. So if this happens, then that happens, and sort of like a tree where as you play the game, you unfold the narrative a bit like, in a way, things like Blackstone Fortress, that kind of stuff, where your choices and outcomes of small objectives play a part on the end result. But I didn't really know. That's kind of for their rules writers to come up with a way of doing that, I guess. And finally, open play. I said, as little as possible, really, because open play is about doing whatever you want. Having toolkits like the stuff in chapter approved for making your own orc vehicles, that was cool. I'd like to see more of that. But otherwise, it's something struck me when they were talking about. I think it was the Foxcast interview with Pete Foley. He was talking about the 3 ways to play, and how for each one of them, when they were designing it, he pinned up like a picture of the person he felt best epitomised that style of playing. And for open play, he had a guy who would quite happily just meet up with his mate, set their armies up on the table, and then just sit and have a beer and look at the armies on the table. And that was quite often how they enjoyed their hobby. Yeah. And I really like that. And I think I've done that. I know I've done that. Yeah. So, I can relate to that. And I think that open play should be as little as possible, really, as free as possible. What did you think about events, dude?
So it is good to see them supporting external events. I think that's cool. I think it's quite challenging. I think it's harder than people maybe expect, because if you're going to put your name to something, you need to understand that it's got certain levels of commitment. And with the greatest respect, there's some events that are fantastic. There's some events that are full of passion, but maybe don't tick all the boxes that Games Workshop want ticked. So, because ultimately people are doing them in their free time. A lot of them. So, but I do think it is cool that they support some of those. For me, I would like to see more painting events. Particularly, there are some great people out there, but some stuff around, like, I've said quite a lot. I'd love it if the army painters did some weekends, all about how to get great results quickly. Yeah. And I think that would really support some of the stuff they've been doing recently about battle ready painting. Yeah. And, just how can I get an army on the table that I can be proud of, but it doesn't take me forever? And you'd think that was surely a good thing and something that they'd be pushing. And I'll be interested to see what comes out of this Grey No More thing that's been...
Yeah, well, that's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because...
As well as having one of the best videos they've ever done.
Yeah. Without any doubt at all, the biggest barrier to people spending money on more soldiers is the amount of soldiers they have unpainted in their house.
Yeah.
I know everybody's in a different position, and I don't wish to offend anyone by being generic, but I would say absolutely when I go into a Games Workshop, and to be fair, I'm not a great example of somebody who's fantastic with financial stuff, but that is the thing that weighs on me more than any other consideration, more than any consideration over the actual cost and the money being spent, is, have I got stuff already to do?
Yeah.
And can I justify it against that backdrop? So anything that they can do to overcome that hurdle, and that's why I'm saying painting events for me, on events wise. And for the different ways to play, I love the different ways to play and the fact they're publicised, and I think it's a really good way to have done it. To open people up to the ideas of different ways of playing. However, for me personally, I didn't need that to be done for me because I got it. Like, before the 3 ways to play were a thing, I was quite happy to play narratively or just throw down all my soldiers. And that's not to say that they shouldn't have done it. I think they absolutely should have, and I think it's brilliant. But yeah, I don't really have, much like you, I don't play a lot of matched play. And actually, I don't really feel an affinity with matched play. And therefore, I'd be hesitant to comment too much because it would be coloured by my own feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly why I didn't answer. It's up for the people who enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You will never convince me that Guilliman and a bunch of assassins is fun or whatever.
No.
You know, narrative. To be honest, Vigilus is blowing that out of the park. I think what you were saying was really, really good. If anything, for narrative, I think going back to models, it would be great to see them expand on things like Imperial Guard regiments and stuff like that, and add in some like civilian miniatures and stuff, like Imperial type objective civilians or vehicles, things that could be used as objectives.
Oh, that's a really good idea. Yeah,
that'd be quite cool, wouldn't it?
Sort of civilian equipment.
Yeah,
or even like the Imperial version of a 4-ton truck. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what was in my head actually. Was thinking that sort of thing. So yeah, that's that, and open play, much like you. I think it's just.
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone, really. I mean, what can you really add? Any time you add anything, it's some form of restriction, isn't it? So
yeah,
in some way. Maybe a book about the best beers of the world to drink while you're looking at your army.
Bugman's guide on getting slowly tippled while you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the last section was on. Codexes, wasn't it? And army books. And you had a bit to say about this.
Did I?
Well, you said that you wanted to leave it till last because...
Yeah, only to try and give myself time to think of something to say.
You brat. Okay. Go on then.
Well, I haven't thought anything yet.
Okay, well, I felt that I'd like to see more history and background. Is essentially my feedback. The more that's in there, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And even if it goes back to a return to sort of background books that we haven't seen, I don't think we've seen enough of for a while. Books like the Uniforms and Heraldry of the High Elves, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yes.
I have my sort of reservations about them because they did make it very difficult to find space to do your own thing in Warhammer Fantasy Battle. That's definitely a problem with them. But there's enough room in Age of Sigmar that they could release, the heraldry and organization of Hammerfall or something, and you could do whatever you wanted anywhere else.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of stuff, or, but there we go. That was my only thing. And that's only because I just love background. But it's not like they aren't working hard to fill those gaps anyway. So, yeah, that's me.
What do I think for codexes?
Oh, points review. I did have something. They asked us how often we'd like to see a points review, and I said 3 months because I didn't feel it wasn't like they were busy enough putting out a codex every month anyway. I thought a points review every 3 months. It's probably completely unrealistic if I'm being genuinely honest. I think 6 monthly would be more realistic. But,
Do you know how much it matters to me?
Not much.
Not at all. I really just don't care. I do, don't get me wrong. When I notice something's gone down in points, I'm like, woot! Or whatever. But it's just not, much like I said about match play, it's not something that matters to me.
No.
The only reason that points matter is because I'd like to have something to work towards, and I like to know there is something nice about playing a game which is essentially balanced.
Yeah.
And I just don't think the odd tweak here or there at the level that I play at,
it's going to make much of a difference.
Is going to make much of a difference.
No,
but
that's
that's
very
still
true.
cool that it's in there. Because actually, if you were really into match play, how often points are reviewed is going to mean a lot to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Codexes wise, things I'd like to see. I'd like to see stuff like you, background wise, but organisation, the nitty gritty of army organisation and things. So, like the old big pictures of what does a chapter look like? What does a company look like?
Yeah.
Because I think some of that stuff that was so well ingrained previously is not so clear now, particularly with like the Space Marines, who are an organised force. But that, for me, that ticks my collector box.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm working with collections. Absolutely, without a doubt, somewhere in this survey, I am going to go on a bit of an impassioned plea for transfers to support other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be really good. It'd be quite nice if they did. They do the cards.
Yeah.
It'd be good if they did a card for the items. Like,
oh yeah.
So that you could have that out in front of you on the table.
That's a really good idea.
Which items you've taken, that would be pretty sweet.
Frankly, I'd just like to see unit cards for 40k. I mean, I don't think it's copying Age of Sigmar too much to have them.
No. No. Probably not. Yeah, I mean, I quite like the codex. Sorry, I'm making bloody loads of racket moving around on my chair just so I can look over at the wall with all my codexes on to decide what I'm going to say next. Yeah, really interesting. Fascinating.
Well,
fascinating
on that
insights.
huge bombshell,
yeah,
Dan is
I have nothing more
satisfied
to say.
with his contribution on codexes.
I am satisfied with codexes.
Cool. So, like we said at the start, we really encourage people to go and answer the community survey because it's clear from the past ones that they are actually taking on board what we say, and I think it's hugely important.
Not what you say, though.
No, not what I say. No one does.
No,
if for some reason any of you noticed that I started to sound weird halfway through this section, it's because my brand new microphone just decided to stop working halfway through, which I'm immensely gutted about. And
trying to do the listeners a good service. That's what it's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was much swearing involved. That's all been edited out, but that's now sitting in the corner in shame. Well, I'll throw it back at Amazon with a mortar or something. Anyway, so next section is Into the Wilds, and I'm going to get a glass of something, and we'll see you there. Hi guys, and welcome to the Wilds. I'm still recording through my laptop. If it sounds dodgy, I really apologise, but it was more important to us to get the episode out than to wait for a new microphone, which would have taken another week, I'm sure. Anyway, there's a few things to talk about Into Wilds today. Dan's got Black Seas by Warlord Games he'd like to mention briefly. I've got Test of Honour and Gods of War, which are roughly the same sort of system. And I've also got a little bit of a lament about Alien vs Predator, which I'll start with, I think. Gutting Alien vs Predator, Dan, is all I can say. So Prodos Games have announced that come the end of April this month, they are ceasing production and stopping retail of Alien vs Predator. Now, I haven't been able to really track down exactly because they're not posting exactly why that's the case. I should imagine that it's very much, and the consensus seems to be, especially considering how clean the cut has been, that they've effectively announced it, and within 1 month they're stopping. That it's to do with the IP, which of course has now been bought by Disney when they purchased Fox, and clearly they weren't happy for one reason or another, and they've stopped Prodos from having the IP. That's the speculation. That is all it is, because I haven't seen anything official. What I am is completely gutted about it, Dan, because I'd ummed and ahed about it. I love the setting. I do love the models they've produced. Whether I like the game or not is almost irrelevant. And I've been stuck in this position where this month I've got nowhere near as much as I'd wanted, of a range that I'm never going to see again. And I'm devastated about it, really.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, mate. I know you really, through all the ups and downs of the range, I know you were really passionate about it.
I wanted it to succeed. Really, really wanted it to succeed. I put in an order, to get some of the stuff that I wanted. But it is what it is. And, I'll enjoy painting them and putting them up on my shelf. If nothing else, because they're fantastic models of a fantastic series of films, frankly. And that's, I guess they become like one of those legacy games where there's never going to change. It is what it is. And the models are nice enough that hopefully the community will pick up where they left off.
Yeah.
I guess. I should imagine, hopefully, that, seeing as Disney have already got, like, working relationships with Fantasy Flight Games with Star Wars, that we might see another company take over the Alien vs. Predator franchise. Look forward to seeing what that produces. But there we go. That's that. And it's a sad sort of end to 42 episodes of me whinging about scale.
I hope, I know that they've got another thing, haven't they, Prodos?
They've got a few other things, but
I just hope there's not. I mean, to be honest, they could be completely different businesses. I don't really know a lot about them, but I hope we don't see a similarity with, because if you remember, Spartan Games had Halo, and they put a lot of time and R&D into Halo, and ultimately the business collapsed. So
it would be a shame if that was the outcome. Yeah. The second thing I wanted to talk about, just news kind of really. Test of Honor, which was done by Warlord Games, is in its second edition. So Test of Honor is a samurai skirmish game. It used really old plastic sculpts by Warlord Miniatures in its starters box. I don't know what's going to be in the new starters box, but essentially it's been produced by Footsore, or the models for Footsore, which then became Warbanner. The Warbanner Games. Warbanner Games was far too close to Warhammer, and I think that's probably very true. And now they've become, I think it's Black Tower or Black Sentinel or something, or Dark Tower or something like that. But essentially, new company in a sense, producing Test of Honor 2, and I will post the link up, but the models that are already coming out of that, I've spoke about the Seven Samurai already, haven't I? A couple of episodes back. But some of the other stuff coming out is really awesome. So if you're into samurai fighting, samurai films, any of that, and you're into wargaming, it's shaping up to be a really cool option for that. I will almost certainly be picking some of them up as soon as I've painted the last lot, because there's a few people at our club who play it and or want to play it, so quite excited about that. Almost like it's a sister game, there's a game called Gods of War, which has caught my eye, which is made by the same people and is ancient Greece. I cannot get away from the idea of how awesome, like, a unit of hoplites with those wicked shields and Corinthian helms would be to paint.
We can't talk about this subject. No.
No?
Because
I
started listening just this morning, actually. I was on the way to work and I thought I could listen to some podcasts about history. And the first one I listened to was about the myth of Spartan invincibility, and talking about Spartans basically, and how that came about. And
does it talk about how the myth was crushed when they were surrounded on an island and arrowed, shot to death, effectively, until they surrendered?
It actually does mention that
the fracturing of the Spartan myth, that they'd never surrender, and they'd it's fascinating little piece of history, that. But
it was. I particularly liked the bit where they were talking about when Xerxes said, lay down your weapons, and they responded with, come and take them.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty ballsy. But it made me think about fan. But I think the thing with historical war games is actually what I have is a desire to collect the miniatures and just have them on the shelf.
Yeah, that's half my problem with these, is that I know I couldn't do a skirmish game of Roman stuff or redcoats, because I couldn't have a skirmish game of Romans or redcoats. I need a battalion of redcoats and a legion of, because that's would just look awesome.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean. Did you want to talk a little bit about Black Seas by Warlord Games?
Well, I did, but really it's just going to be my usual me getting excited about something with no actual body or content to the excitement, because there isn't a lot to be said on it. It was at Salute. I've seen a few bits and pieces I haven't watched. There was an interview with them, which I want to watch. It is essentially everything I've always wanted, in that it is a naval battles game set in
Napoleonic era,
the Age of Sail, basically, in the Napoleonic times. So Trafalgar, in and around that time, which is just perfect. There was another one, Oak and Iron, by the people that did Blood and Plunder. And I was really interested in that, but it was just that bit too early for me, because Blood and Plunder is set, obviously, in the golden age of piracy, which is earlier than that. So it was almost like I was gutted when I saw the time period. And then when I've seen this, I was just like, that is amazing. Massively interested in it. I hope that when it comes along, I can position myself so that I feel that I can, spend some time painting those. It will depend really on New Baby. And lots of factors really, finances and all the rest of it. But it's certainly something that it really does appeal. Really appeals to me.
Final thing from me is, Modiphius have just released a whole bunch of barricades and sort of resiny scenery to do with, Fallout, and the fact that AVP has disappeared, gone the way of the dodo, has made me super worried about Fallout. So we were having a chat, weren't we, Dan? And I'm going to invest a little bit every month because I could just see them going, now. Whereas naively, I thought they'd be around forever because everyone loves Fallout and everyone will buy it. So, I'm now not quite so sure. So I'll be investing a little bit in that. But they're really cool barricades made up of like a post-apocalyptic barricades, but with bits in them that are the style of Fallout. So like the Nuka-Cola machines and all that kind of stuff. They're really cool. And great pieces of scatter terrain, for a Fallout table. So, quite interested in those. So that is kind of our news rundown on the things that have interested us from the outside of the Warhammer hobby. Slightly within the Warhammer hobby, we're very excited to see the Battle Companies is on the horizon, but we will talk about that more next time.
Yeah.
Just to finish the episode, we're going to do a normal thanks. So, as always, massive thank you to the Patreons, because, this month, more than any month, we've literally allowed the podcast to happen, with support to be able to purchase a new microphone. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. It's a bit gutting that it's failed at the last minute this time, but I will send it back and get a new one because Amazon allow you to do that kind of awesome stuff. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the 2P's podcast. Come and hang out, have a chat, throw us messages. We'll interact as much as our time and jobs allow. Which brings us, me and us, onto the last point of the episode, which is we've had a good chat about it, and with the upcoming arrival of Jolly Junior Mark II, it's going to be increasingly hard for us to put out an episode every 2 weeks, and for us to put the amount of passion and energy and time into crafting those episodes as we like, because it does take a while to edit these, and it takes a while to carve out the time to record them as well. So we've made the decision to monthly episodes for, I would have thought, at least 6 months until things settle down. We will obviously keep up the content on the social media pages. We might find time to write more blog posts in the meantime, because they take slightly less time, so that might be something that happens. But we hope that you all understand that that's the position that we're in, and it is to ensure that we can keep on doing this for as long as we can without burning out in a puddle. Anything you'd like to add, Dan, to that?
Just to echo what you said at the end there, really, I think we love doing the podcast. We always did it so me and you could chat. We really enjoy it. We are overwhelmed by the amount of positive support we get. The truth is that it takes, however long the podcast actually is, if you times that by 3, that's a good indication of, the time to edit it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the time to actually record it as well. We're really, really, really fortunate that our families are quite understanding. But actually, if you took a 2-hour episode and said that was probably 8 hours to produce, which is fine. However, that all that time comes away from the free time used to do the hobby.
Yeah. And
certainly for me, and I know for you, Ben, as well, with some recent changes, it started to, the danger is that there's not as much to talk about passionately on the podcast because we haven't had the chance to do the hobby to talk about.
Yeah.
So what's really important to us though is we love doing this. We don't want to stop. We want to keep it coming out. We want to keep in touch really, with you guys, and, at some point in the future, leap back in. But we've always been a family podcast. And family comes first. Yeah.
That's the bottom line, isn't it?
Getting that balance. Right. So basically we're just breeding a new set of co-hosts.
Yes, it's true. Oh my days.
For when we return.
My son as a host on this is just apocalypse waiting to happen. Oh, can you imagine them both? Oh dear. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Sorry about the change in microphone halfway through. The computer one really isn't as good as quality as we'd like, but it is needs must. And we will see you for the next episode. If you haven't already, go on our hobby forum and paint a model in stealth and throw it in the category because we love to see people's entries.
Bye.